Hey guys, Danny with Danny Gus and Fitness podcast here with the one, the only, Josh Romero.
What's up?
So today we are going to be talking about the difference between motivation and discipline. What is motivation? What is discipline? We're going to lean into some of Josh's military experiences, some of Josh's experiences doing the 75 hard challenge, some of our different experiences that we've had personally, that we've observed in clients. And there's a lot of important insights we've learned over the years. And one of those is how at times motivation is unreliable. And if that's your plan, it's maybe a good place to start. But if you don't have the discipline to carry through the different habits, the different methods at which you're going to approach your goals with, it's going to be difficult. So we have insights into that. So this is a good podcast for anybody who is either looking to start something that maybe they haven't done before, or is giving it another go at that thing that they've struggled to do time and time again. So you're not going to want to miss this. All right, man, we're here.
We're here.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. So we were talking about potential topics for the podcast today, and one that came up was the difference between motivation and discipline. And when that got brought up, you kind of raised your hand. You were ready to talk about that based on some of your experiences in the military, some of your experiences more recently with dieting. So I'd love to get into that. And first, I think it's important just to people know, generally speaking, what motivation is, what discipline is. So before we get into it, let's real quickly define. Motivation is the internal drive or external stimulus, meaning it's either coming from within you or something outside of you, that energizes and directs behavior towards a specific goal or action. I feel like that's pretty on.
Yeah.
I looked through a few definitions, and I thought that was one of the best ones. And then discipline is the self-control that is gained by requiring that rules or orders be obeyed, and the ability to keep working at something that is difficult.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like that. Pretty spot on.
So what made you want to dive into this topic?
I mean, personally, I'm going through my phase of my 75 hard challenge.
And what's the 75 hard challenge again?
And so what this is, it's one of the most popular mental recalibration challenge. So it actually honestly is more mental than it is physical.
Okay.
Because it's just 5 simple tasks that you have to do for 75 days consistently, regardless of circumstance.
Okay.
So that's where the discipline kicks in. Everyone has the motivation to start, but when you're day 10, 35, 40, whatever that looks like, are you going to follow through with everything, right? And these 5 tasks, just so I can cover them briefly, is going to be, one is sticking to a diet, and they keep that vague intentionally. Just pick a diet and stick to it.
Does it have to be a diet, or does it have to be, for example, someone just says, I'm going to eat more fruit over the next 75 days? Or does it have to be specifically a diet?
It's specifically a diet because when you start kind of making wiggle room with that, I mean, what's technically sweet and not sweet? Is it added sugars or not, right? Versus like, for me, for example, I'm doing Mediterranean diet, so low sugar, taking red meats out the picture, right? No snacking and no alcohol with this diet too. That's also, yeah, the alcohol is a non-negotiable. That's part of the dieting for anyone.
Yeah.
And then the snacking part,
that makes sense from
right?
the mental recalibration standpoint.
Yeah, and they break down too to say like a diet hypothetically can be, oh, I'm counting macros. So as long as it fits within macros, I can eat my snacks.
Okay.
Well, that doesn't count, right? That's why they say, hey, stick to a diet, at least for that one.
Okay.
Right? So you got that. Second thing is, this is my hardest thing, drinking a gallon of water every single day.
Well, especially drinking a gallon of water for someone who weighs 250 pounds versus
exactly
you
130.
weigh 125?
130.
Oh, 130.
Now, yeah.
Okay.
So
you packed on a few pounds.
Yeah, that's the dad weight kicking in.
There
right
we
now,
go.
Right?
That's
good. Yeah. So, but it all serves a purpose and it ties in together because a gallon of water 75 days is excessive if you're not putting it to use.
Yeah.
The third thing is going to be 2 45-minute workouts and one has to be outside.
That's kind of cool.
And so that's why I did my 45-minute workout right before this podcast outside. And this is where just a tangent is the discipline kicks in because I don't know when I'm going to have that 45 minutes throughout my day. Every day is different for us, right?
Yeah.
I can plan to say, hey, I'm going to do it when I get off of work. But what if my daughter doesn't want to go to sleep or my wife is having a bad day or something else takes precedent?
Yeah.
So you fit in where you get in for that, right?
Where you fit in, where you get in.
There we go. So, all right. The fourth thing is going to be super simple. Read 10 pages of something nonfiction or self-development, right? And I like that one because that's more or less, at least for me, how I felt. Yeah, you're building the brain muscles, right? But it's more or less, and I found this really hard last year when I first started this program, was brain dumping and actually taking time to read and understand the pages versus just skimming through. I would, for the first probably week last year when I did this, I'd catch myself reading a couple pages or chapters and then thinking, oh, I got to get to this or I got to do that. Whereas those things are going to be there after the 10 pages. Focus on that right now, you know?
Yeah.
And then the fifth thing, which simplest one, but can be the most challenging, is taking progress pictures every day.
Yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of people.
Yeah. There's accountability engaged with that one, right? I post mine. My wife doesn't, but we take them, right? Accountability, the fact that you're almost guaranteed to see these changes if you keep up with this.
Yeah.
Kind of, there's no way around that,
Yeah.
you know? And it's one of the easiest things to forget. Like yesterday, it was like 10 p.m. and I almost forgot. And I had to go out and take my pictures, you know?
Yeah.
So just building those habits, 5 simple habits of doing that daily, right? To reinforce lifestyle.
And that photo thing, another benefit from that is part of the reason sometimes people struggle to stick with goals. You've seen this, I know.
Yeah.
Is just being ambivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm kind of about it, but maybe not if I'm tired, not if I'm stressed.
Yeah.
But part of what helps with that is being clear and dealing with the full truth of a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard in my weight loss specialist course, it was talking about how it can be beneficial if you're the type of person to wear hoodies because you're overweight, stop wearing them while you're trying to lose weight. Deal with your reality.
Yeah.
Because then that helps with that ambivalence. You're like, I can't trick myself into thinking things are better than they are.
Exactly.
Same thing with the pictures.
Yeah.
You really have to deal with the reality of your situation.
Yeah.
If part of why you're doing this is weight loss or something like that, right? So I think that's an interesting part of it too.
Definitely, yeah. And so leaning into, there's a multitude of things that we can tangent off of this. I mean, where do you want to take that?
Well, one thing
What are
I
you thinking?
think is, well, you have your military background, and I think the discipline part is really interesting to me, especially from the standpoint of I bolded. So the quote about, or the definition of discipline is the self-control that is gained by requiring that rules or orders be obeyed and the ability to keep working at something that is difficult. So you as a military guy know all about rules and obeying orders, right?
Yeah.
But that's the part I bolded in this was self-control that is gained by requiring that rules or orders be obeyed.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about this 75 hard,
Yeah.
okay, 75 hard, you have 5 rules.
Yeah.
And again, it's not saying, hey, these things are good to do. It's more of an order,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is what it is.
Yeah. This is non-negotiable.
This is non-negotiable. And that kind of ties back into the ambivalence thing,
Yeah.
right? Of like, maybe, maybe not. No, this is what it is,
Yeah.
right? And so you mentioned that some of your, well, real quick before I go, is there a direction you want to take it?
I mean, just so that way, let's go, because I feel like the motivation leads to discipline.
Okay,
Right.
let's get into it.
And just so I can touch base on some military background that I have, it can sound very warm and cushy to hear someone like me talk about that expertise or like things I went through. It sounds cool. I'm motivated, right? But then after the video shuts off, what do you do with that,
Yeah.
right? And just so I can feel like so I can speak like I'm qualified, right? Things that set me back on motivation that I went through with military experience are stuff like my actual physical injuries, right? I did 3.5 years, and I picked up some Achilles tendonitis in my right ankle, 50% less cartilage in my knees. I got a labrum tear in my hip. I had a car accident over a decade ago from something different and a minor skull
Running
fracture.
from the cops.
Yeah, right. So, all those setbacks, right? And then even on the mental side, tapping into this.
That's not what happened, is it?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
But
you were so convincing for that movie. You're like, yeah.
I mean, you already know I can lean into those
Yeah, for
jokes,
sure.
right? Excuse me. But on the mental side, right? And I'm pretty open about this too. The VA diagnosed me with PTSD, a pretty high rating actually, from some like sexual assault or harassment trauma that I went through and a handful of other soldiers went through, right? We don't need to touch base on all of that stuff. All of that circles and intertwines for me to say there's so many days where I don't feel like doing X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
Where I just don't feel like even getting out of bed. And I know there's people without that and they feel the same way too, you know?
Yeah.
But that's more important to reinforce those disciplinary habits so you can just go automated.
Yeah.
I don't want to be motivated anytime. If we worked out anytime we felt motivated, we wouldn't get to our goals, right? But we know the payoff of being disciplined enough to do it, the reward is better than just staying in that hole and just kind of beating yourself up over that.
Yeah.
And just saying one day I'll get to it, you know?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to touch base on that just so like people know like I'm human and yeah, I got military background, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't put those skill sets to use, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, bouncing
And that's
back
such
to
a
that.
good point because the whole part of this is the difference between motivation and discipline and how they apply, right?
Yeah.
Because to your point, motivation is one of those things where you're going to have days you're tired.
Yeah.
You're going to be dealing with injuries. I'm dealing with some injuries right now, so I'm feeling that big time right now. You guys know I tweaked my knee pretty bad a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling like an old man getting up and down off the ground. I'm like, geez.
Yeah.
You know, so dealing with that, there's going to be days you're more stressed. You can almost guarantee that your life circumstances are going to occasionally cause problems for you.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're just hoping that your motivation stays high and you feel all sunshine and rainbows about working towards whatever you're working towards the whole time, that's not going to be the way it is.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I've been sharing with you guys recently, one of the things I've been incorporating more often into my intake calls for new clients is, hey, we talked about your goals, what you want to do, why you want to do it, whether or not that's aligned with what services we offer. Great. Right now, you feel very positive about this. What's going to happen in 2 months when we're making progress, things are feeling good? What's going to happen in your life that is going to throw you off course? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times people are like, well, what do you mean? You know, I think I should be good. And I'm like, no. It will. So what is it?
Yeah.
Right? Is it that you're going to deal with a lot of stress? Do you have a stressful job, a lot going on with the family, et cetera, et cetera? And then more often than not, when you start prompting people, they'll get into it.
Yeah.
But it's best, I think the thing about motivation, it's great to use, but also it's fleeting. So have your backup plans, your contingency plans.
Yeah.
Right? Don't just have plan A and that be it.
Exactly.
Because if that's what you're hoping for and you're thinking motivation is going to take you through that,
Yeah.
we've seen it happen time and time again where that's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, this intertwines with everything, not even just fitness, right? Because I have the motivation, like I'm looking and I'm house hunting right now, right? I have the motivation to save money, but do I have the discipline to not spend that $15 at Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah.
It sounds nice. The motivation, the idea, like for example, the 75-day challenge that I have, anyone else can hear this and hear the transformation part or see the progress pictures we got up there.
Yeah.
Right? And the motivation and the idea of what you're going to accomplish 75 days from now sounds great. But that's where the discipline part kicks in of are you going to take this serious? Like for me, for example, I already finished the 75 hard challenge.
Yeah, this is your second
It's just,
time?
well, not even that. This go around right now, like I finished this. It's just going to take me 75 days to wait. because I know I'm going to do it. It's a non-negotiable.
I see.
You get me?
Yeah.
Like I've already made up in my mind that I'm going to do it, and I've shown already. Last year, just to pull out of that pocket, is my wife and I, we had days where we got off at like 10 p.m. and we did workouts like at midnight after we put the baby down, right? We had like a house fire, an electrical house fire, filled our apartment up with smoke. We couldn't stay in for about 3 days.
Jeez.
Still did our workouts, right? One thing that sucked, and I'm going to share this to her. I never really share my podcast to my wife, but she'll get a kick out of this one because she knows. We went like 3 days without water. And I don't share that to anyone. I've never told you guys that happened, but I think I probably joked with you about that in the past, though, Nico. But nonetheless, we went 3 days without the water, so we had to take showers at my mom and her parents' house.
Yeah.
But we still got our workouts in, and it sucked because we're musty at the end of the day. We went to bed some nights without a shower.
Yeah.
But we still did the program, you know? And we're better off for that, honestly, because we had the discipline. We could have buckled and we could have not worked out, and we could have told people that we did that, but we would just be lying to ourselves if that was the point.
Yeah.
And at that point, then what's the point of doing the challenge or doing anything? If I could just tell you guys, oh, I'm still doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So
there's just been so many experience. I sometimes have days where I feel like I've figured training out, and then a week later, a month later, a year later, I have another experience with a client where I'm like,
yeah.
it's just, it never ends, right?
Yeah.
Because again, really at the end of the day, people who really are about training also are about self-mastery,
Yeah.
right? We're all in our own stuff, whether it be trying to get stronger, lose weight, be more disciplined, be more educated. And one of the things that has been popping up a lot recently is this idea of the orders, the rules, right? And I've been changing my mind a little bit on the idea of a diet, which is why I think it's interesting you're talking about being on a diet, right? I used to say that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Don't be on diets. Diets aren't sustainable, right? But why diets work while people are on them is because there's clear-cut rules.
Yeah.
Right? And so diets aren't bad. It's finding, which the problem is when you don't transition out of a diet.
Yeah.
And you just you go from lots of rules to zero rules.
Yeah.
Right? So you're missing a huge opportunity there.
Yeah.
Right? So you get your diet, you finish. What did you learn from it?
Exactly. Yeah.
What are you going to learn? What did you learn from it about yourself, about food? And how are you going to take that information and apply it moving forward?
Yeah.
And so I've almost been formulating this idea recently, speaking about like the rules, the orders, is to find a way of eating that does apply rules, like your own diet.
Yeah.
But to have parameters that aren't so stifling that you think you're going to go up, it's
off the rails,
off the rails, and you're going to binge eat because you haven't been
Yeah.
doing enough of this or that. You haven't been getting enough sweets. But the more I realize, and this is kind of what I was getting at earlier about just experience with training clients, is we need rules.
Yeah.
We're not really designed not to overeat,
Yeah.
right? We're not. Like our ancestors they gorged themselves on food.
Yeah.
So this is somewhat of a modern problem, right?
Yeah.
So we almost need rules to help anchor ourselves in this modern, we have our ancestors' DNA, but problems they didn't have.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I mean, Jocko Willink has a great book and a great philosophy. At the end of the day, discipline equals freedom. And that's true. Rules sound like you're closing off and like secluding yourself to rules and you're weighing yourself down. Well, no, rules actually and discipline, they just weed out the things that aren't important,
Yeah.
Like during this program, like I said, I'm a gamer. I love playing video games.
Yeah.
Narayan, my client, he got me into a video game called Monster Hunters. I racked in like 30 hours within the first like 3 days because I am excessive with that.
That's awesome.
I don't have that luxury with this program
Yeah.
to grind that.
Yeah.
And when I do my program, I say, hey, I'm going to do this first. That's where the rules, the discipline kicks in. I need to do this first. And whatever time I have left over, first goes to my daughter. And then when she's going to sleep, then that's my me time.
Yeah.
Right? It sets my priorities straight.
Yeah.
Same thing, like I've had my wife and I, we started doing this with this program. I got my rucking bag and I put my daughter on my back like Yoda, right?
That's awesome.
And we go on hours. We've racked up since we started this last year hours of walks together, whereas we usually would just maybe watch TV and just maybe stay on our phone and brain dump. We're together, but we're not connecting.
Yeah, yeah.
And this even intertwines to a little tangent is like our relationship is better for that because now we can talk about finances. We could actually talk about our days.
About
we could
anything.
vent, right? We've had good conversations and bad ones, and we need that. So,
Yeah.
And then same thing with the diet part. Like I'm not a saint. I'm just like everyone else. Like this is just a 75-day blip of me having to diet, but I want all the fast food, the fried chicken. Like I love pizza. I love all that stuff. But a reward system that I came up with is because my daughter's never had candy, at least not for me. When I'm done, because I did this with my dad growing up, 75 days from now, or I'm already 10 days in, but my reward system is going to be I'm going to have a Red Bull for myself, and I'm going to share Sour Patch Kids with my daughter, with
cool.
Ivy. Because I remember like my little sister even having her first Sour Patch Kid. And it was just like when she was a baby or like a little kid. I know you're not supposed to give kids sweets, but something I'm looking forward to as a dad,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and that's a huge part of, we could go up, this is a whole separate part of sort of behavioral coaching, psychology, but one thing that's becoming big lately is the idea of celebrating.
yeah.
Right? Just giving yourself that pat on the back, right?
Yeah.
We all knew we liked it as kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like you did good, your gym teacher, your coach, your dad, whoever is like, hey, buddy, great job. Why don't we all need to do that when we're adults too?
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not going to have a gym teacher or dad or whoever. So you have to be that person, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're
Yeah,
building
definitely.
in that, hey, this is that positive anchor
Yeah.
through this experience to
Yeah.
say, hey, not only is this what I'm working towards, but this is a way to
Yeah.
celebrate what I've been able to do.
Definitely. And firsthand, I suffered with this.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
we've had countless of conversations, me, you, and all the other guys, where I'm a little bit more self-deprecating of like, I don't feel like I deserve the rewards of like, oh, you did a good job. Back then, like I still kind of feel this way,
Yeah.
but back then it was more or less, you did your job, move on.
Yeah.
That's the military side for me. But
It
you're
makes
right.
me think
yeah.
of my dad watching NFL back in the day. Do you know Barry Sanders?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Barry Sanders, one of the best running backs of all time, maybe the best. He retired early. We'll never know. But he'd score and just hand the football to the ref.
Yeah.
And my dad would go, that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
then now in the modern day, people celebrate in the end zone. My dad's like, act like you've been there before,
Yeah.
right? But I see both sides.
There's both,
I
yeah.
see I see I've done it, right?
Yeah.
But also, I understand the benefit in celebrating. So
Yeah.
to finish things, what do you think would be a good tip for anybody watching to kind of understand when it's time to switch from motivation to discipline?
I think setting what's helped me at least is, and this is more like a trick, is setting a designated time for whatever you're going to do. Meaning like regardless of what's going on, block off a set time and make that your just like us with our sessions.
Yeah.
I sometimes leave the hour reminder for my clients even when we know we're not going to train, so they get the reminder, and I tell them, hey, we were planning on training that time anyways, but something happened.
Yeah.
Go work out, because if I didn't have my doctor's appointment, you'd be here.
You would,
Yeah. And even on those days you're not feeling it, a crappy workout is better than no workout.
Absolutely.
I've never met someone that hated the way they felt after the workout than when they started. You
Yeah.
know. And yeah, I mean, just be consistent. And then at the end of the day with that, you're going to fall short a good chunk of times, you know?
Yeah.
Every day is kind of like a reset, but don't beat yourself up over that. It's just reassess, reevaluate, and then hit the drawing board again if that's the case.
Yeah.
You know?
And the consistent message, an underlying tone, I think, of what you're saying and is coming up a lot with discipline is it's a choice.
Yeah.
Are you choosing 100% to go down that path?
Yeah.
Right? Are you leaving the door open in some ways? Are you open to not doing it if your day is stressful?
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of people do that. I've done that. You've done that. But I think the one thing that's more important than anything else to choose is the direction you're going.
Yeah.
Because even to your point, if you do fall, right, you do struggle, you have a bad day, you have a bad week, but you're still committed to going in that direction.
Yeah.
Then you will get there because you're going to fight for it because it's important to you.
Yeah. Like if someone says they want to wake up at 5, they're motivated to wake up at 5 in the morning, but they wake up at 7:30.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to consistently wake up at 5? I mean, it'll take a lot of willpower. The potential to do that is there.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe more realistically, they start falling short. You beat yourself up. I'm going to try tomorrow or try the next day, right? Well, if it's not working, hit the drawing board. 5 is probably out the picture right now. Wake up at 7.
Yeah.
Wake up at 7:15.
Yeah.
Course correct and move on,
Yeah.
right? There's no reason to keep beating yourself up, you know? So, I mean, I learned that from you from some of the other things we've talked about, the gaming stuff.
Yeah.
If you're going to play video games and you know you want to clean the house or do whatever, right? Just play the games.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up
Own
over
it.
Yeah, own it. You know, those things are going to happen
And then
regardless.
Course
so.
correct and move on, right?
Yeah, so, all right.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.